A big update on the contracts expiring for former Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers. Plus, we have an update on New Japan Pro Wrestling star Juice Robinson, former Impact Tag Team Champion as well, leaving the company once his contract expires. We have an update on Maria Kanellis' agreement with Impact Wrestling ending very soon. And an AEW star says they want to be the Impact Digital Media Champion. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling today. So let's start off talking about the Good Brothers. And honestly, this was an interesting story when this came out yesterday. And the reason I say it's an interesting story because I felt like it was common knowledge. Like it was one of these stories where I went, yeah, I know. And this isn't like, oh, Owen, you're this amazing expert on people's contracts and all that kind of stuff. But I just felt like it was a well-known fact. Nevertheless, the Good Brothers may once again become free agents in the near future. Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson debuted with Impact Wrestling back at Slammiversary on July 18, 2020. But Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp, is now reporting that their current contracts will expire on Sunday, July 17. There is no word on if Impact is looking to re-sign Gallows and Anderson or if they are interested in signing with another promotion. Now, the Good Brothers have work dates for AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling whilst under contract to Impact, and the ring veterans have deep ties to people in both promotions. New Japan has also started working on visas to bring American talents back to Japan to work, so it is possible we'll see Gallows and Anderson make a return there. So this is an interesting story. Now, the Good Brothers themselves have confirmed that this is the case. The Good Brothers, as I mentioned, they signed with the company in 2020. And while speaking to Lucha Libre Online, Gallows and Anderson confirmed that those deals were coming up. PW Insider was first to report the news that Gallows and Anderson's contracts are up in July. And Fightful Select added that the exact date is July 17. But this is what Anderson and Gallows said. Quote, this was Anderson. "We signed a 2-year contract with Impact Wrestling. 2 years is almost up. What's going to happen?" Gallows said, "What's going to happen, Scott?" Gallows laughed. Ross is rubbing his face right now off camera because I'm not supposed to say that. So yeah, they've confirmed that their contracts are indeed coming up. As I mentioned, I felt like this was common knowledge because again, maybe the confusion was if they had signed anything between July 2020 and now, but they came in to Impact Wrestling in July. They appeared at Slammiversary in 2020. That was their big debut. Of course, their non-competes, like several people at the time that had been released by WWE, came up the day before Slammiversary. So, or was the day of, something like that. Nevertheless, so they did their big, debut, shall we say, or it was made official that they were signing with Impact Wrestling once the clock struck midnight before Slammiversary. I think it was on a Friday, or to come into the Saturday. They did that post when they appeared inside the Impact Zone and the music played and all that kind of stuff. And then they appeared the following night at the end of Slammiversary, confronting, it was Asos and the Madman Fulton just after Eddie Edwards had won the Impact World Championship. And it was widely reported at the time that they had signed a 2-year deal with Impact Wrestling. So yeah, it's nearly been 2 years, so their contracts are up in July. Again, I didn't think that was big breaking news. Now, the discussion point, which is interesting, is where are they going to go? What's going to happen? And I do think that's a big discussion point because honestly, my feeling right now is I'm not sure if they'll re-sign with Impact Wrestling. I know that they're very happy there, and I know that they got some really, really good deals. Now, I don't think they were comparable to the deals they had in WWE because those deals were really, really big because WWE was desperate at the time for them not to go to AEW, and ironically then, because of the pandemic, they fired them. Just a couple of months later, they went to Impact, but they ended up in AEW anyway. There was a bit of friction between them and the Young Bucks because they chose WWE over AEW at the time when they re-signed with WWE, but that's water under the bridge now because, of course, they've appeared on AEW programming. So as to what they will do in the future, I don't really know because they're kind of doing everything that they were, expected to do as well. When they signed with Impact, they made it very clear that Impact had priority on their dates, but also they had clauses in their contract that they would be allowed to work New Japan Pro Wrestling dates if they wanted to. Now, of course, at the time that they signed the contracts with Impact, it was right in the middle of the pandemic. Well, the pandemic had just started, so going over to Japan to work was just an impossibility. It wasn't happening, but the hope was that once Japan opened back up, they would go back over there and they'd be doing shows in Japan. I don't know how frequently that plan was at the time, but certainly there was the plan that they would be going to Japan to work dates. I think now, as the report mentions, that Japan are working on visas for people in the United States to come more regularly to Japan, and as Japan starts to open up, there will certainly be offers on the table for the Good Brothers. And I do think it's less likely that they sign a similar deal to what they did with Impact. I wouldn't rule out them sticking around. This is the thing, is that they've kind of been working for lots of promotions anyway. It's just Impact have had priority on their dates. I think we could be seeing a situation where Impact just doesn't have those priorities anymore, and maybe they'll reach a compromise where it's like, look, we're not going to sign the deal that we once had with you because we want to work more for New Japan, or we want to go over to Japan to work, or we want to be able to work for AEW or something like that. We're happy to continue doing dates for Impact, but we're not going to sign more. And it's not really an exclusive agreement that they have, but that continuation of the deal they have, I don't think they'll do that. Do I think AEW will be interested? Yes, I do. I think that they wanted to bring the Good Brothers in. I mean, it's crazy to think what could have been when it came to AEW's debut episode of Dynamite. In the end, it was from Washington, D.C., but the plan was originally for that debut episode of Dynamite to actually take place in Madison Square Garden, and the closing moment of the show would see the Good Brothers and AJ Styles, who, of course, his contract was coming up at the time, attack the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega attack the Elite, and that was going to be the closing angle of that opening show. Of course, we know that didn't happen. In the end, the debut episode of Dynamite came from Washington, and the closing moment actually saw the formation of the Inner Circle. So radically different in the end we got from that show, but that was the original plan. AEW, of course, they would want the Good Brothers. I think the reason why when they were doing appearances on Dynamite previously, throughout 2020 and 2021, they were used in main events and somewhat, and they were used in multi-man matches with the Elite, but they were never really front and center because always the plan was that they were going to go away. The only reason they were appearing on AEW was part of the Impact and AEW crossover that hinged on Kenny Omega's appearances. Once that came to a close, and once the Impact World Championship was dropped to Christian Cage and he was doing that kind of stuff, there was really no need for the Good Brothers to really be on the show anymore. So they just went back to doing stuff on Impact Wrestling programming. Do I think that they would want the Good Brothers to come in and be back as part of that faction? The Elite's just a bit different at the moment, isn't it? Of course, Kenny Omega isn't on television at the moment. We don't know when he's going to be back. It could be the end of the year. I mean, he's still got to have quite a few surgeries. There's no timetable for his return. Don Callis made an appearance at Revolution, but we don't know what the situation is there. He could return with the Good Brothers in AEW as their manager. That's a possibility. But the Elite as a faction right now, I guess Adam Cole's the leader, but he's more doing stuff with Red Dragon. The Young Bucks are kind of involved in that, but they're kind of not. So again, I'm not sure. I do think there'll be interest, certainly from AEW, but I think the main interest will be from New Japan, and I think that New Japan will want to bring them over to Japan more often. I know when they signed with WWE in the first place back in 2016, it's because they were tired of that travel in Japan, but then you sign up to WWE, which is crazy travel as well. So I think Impact will have a difficult time in re-signing them, but I think they'll make them an offer. I think the Good Brothers will consider it, but I would assume, again, they'll probably just want more than what they've got right now. Not necessarily money, but in terms of opportunity to work in other places. So I wouldn't rule out the Good Brothers staying in Impact Wrestling, but the deal they have right now, is that going to happen? I see them being more based in New Japan or possibly signing with AEW, but that's just my opinion on it at the moment. Speaking of New Japan, though, Juice Robinson, former Impact Tag Team Champion, has confirmed that he is leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling. Juice Robinson announced Wednesday that he is leaving New Japan when his contract expires on April 30th. The 33-year-old wrestler confirmed his New Japan departure during a guest appearance on Wrestling Observer Live. He said, quote, "I don't have any plans to travel back over. I'm at the end of my contract. I did an extra 3-month extension, so that ends on April 30. So that will be that. I will not be wrestling under the New Japan banner any longer. I really don't know what's next. I'm just going to hang out and relax for a little while and see what comes to me." He mentioned that he was really grateful for his time in New Japan as well. When asked if he was eyeing a particular opponent in his post-New Japan Pro Wrestling career, Robinson responded, quote, "I don't really have anybody that I want to wrestle, to be honest. I just don't have that urge to wrestle really anymore." He will wrestle. I honestly think he'll probably end up in Impact, considering that he's done appearances for them. That we heard several times in lots of interviews that a lot of the talents that weren't domestic New Japan Pro Wrestling talents, the foreigners, the overseas people that were based in the United States, were very frustrated with New Japan, and obviously the major part of their money was based in going over there, and that was really difficult because of the pandemic, and there was lots of outbreaks, and they didn't really know what was going on. In some instances where they'd go over there and essentially get trapped because the borders would close and all that kind of stuff. And we'd heard that a lot of these people were considering their futures with the company. Juice Robinson being one of them, David Finlay being another. So I wouldn't be surprised if Finn Juice returns to Impact. As mentioned, they had a good run there previously. I think they had a good experience. I think it's likely that he does go to Impact. Of course, we do know that his fiancee, Toni Storm, is in AEW, so that's a possibility as well. But look, that roster is just so crowded, and no disrespect to him, but can he really truly make waves? And when you've got people talented like Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, they were on Dynamite last night, but they've had to wait a long time to get that opportunity to be in that prime real estate. So for me, I think the best option would be to go to an Impact Wrestling. So keep an eye out on that one, because that certainly could be happening in the future. Now, Maria Kanellis has been very involved in the Honor No More faction in Impact Wrestling, but her agreement with Impact Wrestling reportedly ends after the upcoming Poughkeepsie events. Maria Kanellis Bennett is wrapping up with Impact after their Poughkeepsie, New York events. Next weekend, of course, Impact Wrestling is presenting their next pay-per-view titled Rebellion. Matches on the card include Moose versus Josh Alexander for the World Championship, Tasha Steelz versus defending the Knockouts Championship, Jonathan Gresham taking on Honor No More's Eddie Edwards. Now, of course, the Honor No More group consists of Maria, Mike Bennett, Kenny King, PCO, Matt Taven, and Vincent. Honor No More arrived to Impact at the Hard to Kill event in January, and during a virtual signing with the KNS WrestleFest, Kanellis Bennett stated that her agreement with Impact ends after the upcoming shows in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is Rebellion, and the post-pay-per-view TV tapings. Quote, I don't have a contract with Impact Wrestling, so I have a pay-per-deal with Impact, and that comes to a close in Poughkeepsie. So after that, we'll see where we go from there. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of chaos we can still have over in Impact, but I'm not exclusive, and with Ring of Honor, we don't exactly know what's going on, what that's going to be. I ran the women's division last year. I absolutely loved it. It was really like the most rewarding year of my entire career. So if I can help in any way, even if it's just shadowing somebody, I think that's where I would like to take my career next. So of course, I still love to, manage and add a division in any way I can. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. The next few months are going to be really interesting to see what Ring of Honor becomes. Now, of course, Tony Khan mentioned in a recent media scrum after Supercard of Honor that he would be interested in talking to Maria about possibly coming back into Ring of Honor and helping with the women's division there. So I think that she's probably keeping her options open, as she mentioned in that comment there. I think she's probably keeping her options open to see, look, if that offer comes to be part of that women's division again in Ring of Honor, I'll jump at it, And I think, again, I've said so many times here on the channel that Impact Wrestling doesn't hand out many contracts. They hand those kind of deals out, whether it's, a pay per appearance or an agreement or a verbal agreement, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Honor No More, frankly. Coming into Rebellion and coming out of it as well, we could see the faction disappear, essentially. Like, they came in at Hard to Kill in January, and maybe the idea was you'll go from one pay-per-view to the next. You'll go from Hard to Kill to Rebellion, and then we'll see what happens, or we'll figure it out along the way. And that kind of feels like what is going to happen with Honor No More. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see either members leave or the faction just completely disintegrate and the storyline play out. Finally, AEW star Nyla Rose says she wants to be Impact Wrestling's digital media champion. In an interview with the Battleground podcast via Fightful, Nyla Rose spoke about her dream opponent in wrestling and said she wanted to be the Impact Wrestling digital media champion. Her dream opponent, she said, would be Mickie James for a variety of reasons. And she said when it comes to the Impact Digital Media title, quote, whoever is the Impact Digital Media champion, because I feel like I should have that. Hey, bitches, can be dudes or females, it doesn't matter. I'll break him. So she's saying, look, I'm happy to go for the Impact Digital Media Championship. Whether or not that will actually happen, I think maybe the Impact Wrestling fans kind of got their fill of the whole AEW and Impact crossover. I know for a lot of people that are big fans of Impact and only Impact, some of the AEW crossover is a bit of a sore spot because they felt that, what did Impact really benefit out of it? Myself, personally, I say, well, they got strong ratings and they got the best buy rates of a pay-per-view since Anthem purchased the company, which they're still to this day very happy about, but it's the aftermath. There's not been particularly great. And what was really the ending of it? There wasn't really one. That was the problem there. But I mean, more crossover could happen in the future. You never know. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's Impact Wrestling news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestling News 365, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.